Hello ladies and gentlemen, today is August 2nd that I'm doing this recording, and as I've said, I don't do regular videos anymore. I'm out of that, but a lot of folks here on YouTube have asked me to come on occasionally and bring up something that might be of some concern. And of course right now the big talk is Syria. Now, you remember back when we were having problems with North Korea, I warned about the possibility of a nuclear exchange of some sort, at the very least an EMP problem, electromagnetic pulse. I'm not sure that that would happen on this. There are a lot of, there's so many things that can occur over a period of time, and the scenarios can play out differently, but we can see during this Syria thing that everybody, because of the alternative media, has had to address the issue of false flags and of getting involved in wars to keep the heat off the establishment, off the issues that are happening here domestically, and how, of course, how they're the entire banking problem as it's taken down countries, and then countries that are reacting against that. For instance, Iceland, who basically kicked the bankers out, and I understand that Ireland might be in the process of doing the same thing. If they don't do that, then of course there's the problem that Cyprus had, and the rest of Europe could very easily fall to that. So the issue really comes down to, what are these wars about? What is the situation with Syria? I mean, most of us know by this point that this entire civil war was kind of instigated by the Western intelligence services. And we all know that Al-Qaeda is basically, they try to say it's just a faction in the Syrian rebel forces, but in fact the Syrian rebel forces have subjected themselves, have subordinated themselves to the Al-Qaeda leadership, and that's fully understood, and everybody knows it. Egypt knows it, and they have some information that they're going to come out with here shortly, according to the Egyptian military. We saw it happen in Libya, and of course now in Syria it's going to be more of the same. So what is really going on? What are people concerned about? Who are they, and why is it that war seems to be the reason or the situation that occurs all of the time when these issues come up? For instance, World War II, after the Depression, things like that. So what we're going to do today is, I have a gentleman here that I would like us to listen to for a few minutes. His name is Brand Thornton. He has studied these issues for many years, and it'll be somebody else that you can listen to besides me. He's very knowledgeable, and I think, although some of this is available if you search into it, it would be nice to hear somebody else talk about it from their perspective, about how the banking system and how the issue of money has caused this situation in Syria, and more that's coming, and how all of those things interrelate. So without any further ado, let's go to Brand Thornton. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brand Thornton. Say hi, Brand.
Glad to meet you, folks.
All of our friends out there. Now, Brand and I have been friends for over 30 years, and we've had a lot of experiences together. Hopefully, when you're around that long, you have these many experiences, you learn something. There's that old saying, you get too soon old and too late smart. Well, hopefully we got some smarts anyway, one way or the other. Brand has been studying this financial thing. He's a wizard at it. He owns his own business. He's a successful businessman. So I think he can give us some information here that will really help us about what's happening in the world and how money is involved. So Brand, why don't you take it from there, especially on this Syrian conflict that we're entering into now?
Well, we're in a very precarious position. We could have World War III literally break out any minute. You see this administration, or the Obama regime, as I prefer to call them, balls to the walls. They're not backing off, and they're not going to back off either. And they have everything to lose at this point. I think the only way it can be described is blood money. If they cannot prop up the U.S. dollar, which is pretty much in free fall at this point in the rest of the world, if they can't prop up the U.S. dollar, all of the money that they have squirreled away in all their offshore bank accounts is going to be worthless, and they will be neutered. They will be powerless at that time. So this is all about their survival. What you were seeing, this insanity is all about their survival. When I say they, I'm talking about the world's elitists, which Obama is nothing but a puppet for. And you can look at the political spectrum, and regardless whether it's the GOP or the Democrats, and all the shrill screaming that's going on by people like Senator McCain, they know exactly what's happening. And that's what we're going to try to explain to you. And what you're going to see is this is all about their personal bank accounts, their personal greed, and losing it all, literally losing it all. So the US dollar is nothing but paper anymore. It's not backed by gold, and it's just backed by the confidence that the world places in it. And that confidence is going bye-bye very, very fast. So they have what is termed the petrodollar. And the petrodollar is what they're going to use, or at least attempt to use, to prop up the US dollar. And they've got to get control over the world's oil reserves, gas and oil reserves, to save it. So, as you see in the Middle East, these different countries have been falling one by one, opening the door to the taking control over the world's oil wells. And right now, Iran is really what they're after. That's the big enchilada. They've got to get control over Iran. They can't do that unless they go through Syria. So they're willing to risk World War III, and they're more than willing to kill anybody, regardless, man, woman, child, Christian, Muslim, Jew. That has nothing to do with anything. They will kill the entire world. They will set it on fire. They have a scorched earth policy, and they will do exactly that to save, excuse me, but to save their worthless asses. And that's what you are seeing right now. So, you know, once you connect the dots, little by little, all this will become very obvious to you. China right now is a huge threat to them. China has a collateralized account.
What does that mean, Brian?
It's just been substantiated by a third party. They've actually gone in, they've looked at the gold, weighed it, counted it, and they know that they can verify that they have this is something like 750,000 tons of gold. And by having it collateralized or documented by a third party, the rest of the world will trust it. And when they start printing currencies that will be backed up by this gold, people will, or countries will accept it. Anytime you can take paper money and exchange it for precious metals, it breeds confidence. And confidence is the name of the game. Even right here in the United States, as long as we can take the dollar and you can go down to the grocery store, you can go down to the gas station, and you can exchange that for real goods or services, you have no problem with it. The day that you go down there and you try to buy, truckload of groceries or whatever that you're interested in at the time, and they will not accept that, you no longer have confidence in it. It's very, very simple. So, and we're currently in the position, the world is, that they are switching from the dollar, and they're going to this gold-backed yen that China is putting out there. And there is another collateralized account that's in the works also, and there's some issues with that because the Federal Reserve is making claims to it right now, but it is in Indonesia. And there's a gentleman, I believe the name is, last name is Mr. Kelly. He's one of the executors to that account, and they've been pushing very hard to get this account collateralized and be able to use it as a world currency. The point of this being that as soon as the US dollar collapses and it is no longer recognized as a world's reserve currency, these offshore bank accounts that the elites have the elites in this country and the elites in the rest of the world.
Could you name a few of them for us, Brand?
Oh yeah, well, President Obama is a perfect example. Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi. There's a whole, I mean, Dianne Feinstein, Senator John McCain, Lindsey Graham. I mean, on and on and on and on. They have all been doing insider trading for many, many years now. They've exploded their bank accounts from the first day that they actually were elected or they were in office, which ought to be a red flag to everybody. How in the world do you go in worth a few $100,000 in a few years? You're worth tens of millions of dollars. It should be a red flag, a dead giveaway instantly. So, and this was all done by fraud, coercion, and you know, if they can't control the law enforcement, militaries of the world, or the police departments of the world, they're going to get found out. Just a point of interest I find very interesting is that the Federal Reserve is a Ponzi scheme by strict definition and is illegal in every single state of the union. So, you know, I did an expose on that a few years ago, which was sent to Sheriff Mack, and from what I understand, went out from there. And I'm sure it had an effect because, like a week later, I went to my mailbox and I had all kinds of stuff from the IRS, which is ongoing at this time. So, if we can ever get the sheriff's departments to fulfill their oath of office, they will close every single IRS building down. Every Federal Reserve banking system bank will be shut down. So, and of course the danger there is if they ever did do that, you know, we got to have a competing currency to replace the existing currency. And this is Ron Paul's, I think his claim to genius is the fact that he has been calling for competing currencies, whether it's precious metals from Chinese or the Chinese banks, or even here in the United States. And you know, there's obviously somebody behind all this, because you can see the world's bankers scrambling. Just recently, the Rothschilds and Rockefellers decided to consolidate all their wealth into one bank in the UK. Well, they didn't want to do that. They were forced into do it. They lost huge sums of money. Not like they really, it's going to hurt them in any way, but when you see this happening all around the world, something is happening. Well, they've been painted into a corner, as my good friend Roy here said. When you put a mad dog in a corner, he's going to react accordingly, and he's going to bite whoever gets closest to him. And that's what you're seeing with this regime, this Obama regime, is they are backed into a corner, and all their constituents that are in on this fraud with them, and they're right on the edge of losing everything. And you know, like I heard not too long ago, is when American people lose it, they lose it. Well, this is the other side. This is the flip side of that coin. They are losing it, and they are losing it.
Which brings us to another point, Brand. I wanted to bring you back to the Iranian thing, because we were discussing it earlier. Well, first of all, we know about the Wesley Clark revelation that he saw a document back in the 90s where these countries that we've seen taken down, Iran included into that, was part of a list that he actually saw many years ago, which shows that this was a premeditated type of thing, and he's talked about that. But what I would like to get to is the fact that Iran was talking about dropping the petrodollar, doing it in any way that they could, and using another currency. I'd like you to talk about that, because as we've said, that is the end game here, to go into Iran. And merely going into Syria and challenging them there, especially with the Russian interests, with the port that they have there, and also their alliance with the Russians, we're really endangering the people of the world here for the sake of money. But knowing that Iran is the end game, what exactly is it that happened there in Iran, and the whole situation that endangered the petrodollar that's causing this thing to go forward? If you could address that.
Well, those 7 nations that Wesley Clark was talking about, the thing they all had in common is they did not have a Rothschild Rockefeller central bank. Okay, and so they were independent in that sense, and they decided these people aren't stupid. regardless of what the rest of the world likes to think about them. They understood they were being painted into a corner by being controlled by the U.S. dollar. And little by little, and I'll say this, I believe the end game, when you really get down to brass tacks with these people, because they've actually, you presented me with over 200 comments, statements that they have made about controlling the world, controlling the population of the world. And they've been doing, they go all the way back in the 50s about reducing the world's population. The Georgia Stones, which they are directly responsible for, they come right out and tell you they're going to reduce the world's population by 95%. In order to do that, you've got to control the world's resources. Henry Kissinger talking about controlling the world's foods.
By the way, what did he say about the military? Do you remember that?
Oh, they call them the big dumb soldiers that just go out and do what they're told, basically cannon fodder. Which you and I have almost reached a point until lately we were I was agreeing with him. We're seeing a rise, we're seeing a response in the military right now, which is actually is such a breath of fresh air. And you know, that they're not going to go into Syria. I think they're finally waking up, that they've been doing the bidding for, I call them the elite, the elite white European aristocracy, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Bilderbergs, Warburgs, the DuPonts, the Schiffs, and a few others in there that have controlled the world's banking and political structure for at least 200 years. You know, and so the military appears to be waking up. They're sick of this. They're sick of being bent over and taken advantage of by these people, because they don't care about the military. In fact, when they're done, the rest of us, the military will be next. They will have them killed just as fast as the military kills us, if that's what it leads up to. So it's wonderful to see the military waking up, recognizing that this is nothing more than blood money. It is greed on these people are nothing but common thieves. Okay? If they could reach in your pocket and steal a nickel from you, all the time they got $1 billion in the bank, they would do it. They're compulsive, obsessive, and they're nothing but common thieves. And I think once people recognize that and get past the illusion and realize that what you're seeing is nothing more than a bunch of elitists that are trying to save their own personal bank accounts, and they will kill whoever or whatever to save those bank accounts. So.
I just wanted to interject here real quick, going back to these military folks. We realize that the entire situation with the Middle East, especially the Western intelligence services developing the Taliban and Al-Qaeda so that we have a perpetual enemy, is something that is now pretty much out in the open. I mean, the mere fact that this we'll call it a regime like you did rather than administration, I like that this regime, this Obama regime, and really starting off with Bush and of course the PNAC, you know, the Project for a New American Century that was talked about, that was written back in the 90s. All of this showed that they needed an enemy, and to conduct horrible wars, not just overseas, but like 9/11, the fact that you would actually murder thousands of Americans in order to create a false flag and then blame somebody else for it. And Al-Qaeda has been their whipping boy, but by the same token, it is also a creation of the Western intelligence services. And our military members have seen that they've worked with it, and now they're refusing, not in large numbers as far as we can tell, but at least large numbers are aware of it. And a few have actually said that they will refuse to do that. How do you think that will work out in the long run? Do you think that maybe this will be a good thing, or do you think that this is essentially a whistleblowing campaign by military people? Do you think that this could end up badly for the rest of us, if you understand what I'm saying here?
Well, you know, look at the alternative. I believe personally, my personal convictions, it's going to turn out to be a good thing, and we're going to beat this thing. We're going to win this thing as a people. as a freedom-loving people, as Americans. If you look at our ancestry, going back, 200 years, and how we've always fought for freedom, and everybody that's come to this country for 200 years have been freedom-loving people. I don't care if they came here as illegals or if they came here as legals. I'd say the majority of them are basically freedom-loving people, and they saw the beacon of freedom in America, the opportunity to express yourself, be an entrepreneur, which I'm not going to suggest to anybody in this day and age, but to be an entrepreneur, to have your own thing, to have true capitalism, not crony capitalism, but to earn a home and have that home yours, to build something in the future for your children and your children's children. And this is what I think the inherent love and desire of freedom-loving people is. So regardless of whether you're in law enforcement, if you're in military, I believe in that sense we are all one. We just got to wake up and take a look at what is actually happening around us. Anybody just looks around a little bit, it's insanity what's going on. We should be able to trust law enforcement. We should be able to trust our military. And look at them as in a leadership role. That has been on very, very shaky grounds for some time now. And I believe it's all going to turn around. I believe we are seeing the beginnings of it. And maybe I'm kind of a Johnny-come-lately on this thing, but I've been watching Alex Jones for many years now. I've been watching, and many of that ilk that have come out and have been leading in the forefront this whole fight of education and knowledge and intelligence. And now we got the information at our fingertips in the information age. If you want to know, all you got to do is go to your computer, go to the internet. And I highly suggest and advise law officers, military, do some research, do some homework on the Illuminati. When I started this 40-something years ago, you couldn't find out anything about these people. It was all secrecy.
They even denied that they existed.
And, I always thought, well, gee, if we could get this out. And by the way, I was doing this in 61. I started doing this about 40 years ago, trying to talk to people and explain it to them. And back then, oh my gosh, I was branded a total, I don't even know what you call it now, but a radical of immense proportions, and basically drove people away and drove people crazy. So it's really nice for me to see them exposed the way they are. And I think this, in this information age, is taken off. The worst thing that could ever happen to the Illuminati and to these people is to have this information available to every single person. And if you are in the military, if you are in any branch of law enforcement, I don't care who it is, if you're in the IRS, for heaven's sakes, and I've talked to IRS agents, I've had long conversations with them, and if you're in the IRS, or like I say, any branch of law enforcement, which I really can't say IRS is law enforcement, do a little bit of research, and you will see that you can find out very easily how this Ponzi scheme works. The military, you guys can go and find out who's been controlling this country for over 200 years, the Illuminati, and how they manipulate and control governments for their own selfish interest, and the destruction they cause. Oh my God. I mean, you're talking about beautiful children, innocent children, and women, and young people and elderly people that they absolutely slaughter. And if they don't, and that's if they're lucky. If you're not lucky, you're maimed for life, or you're chemically poisoned, and you go through this slow, agonizing death. And they're trying it with us here. They've been doing it with the chemtrails, the fluoridated water, the Monsanto poisoning our foods, and on and on and on. Fukushima. I mean, hey, if you just take Fukushima alone, it might be over with as far as survival in the long term. We got to put this stuff to rest, figure out how to approach these problems and come up with solutions. If we don't, it is history. Now, these people, they took your tax dollars, my tax dollars, and they built underground bunkers, self-contained cities to protect their sorry asses. They don't care about us above the ground. They're going underneath the ground, and they're going to have a scorched earth policy because, hey, if the time ever comes that they want to come out of the ground, they don't want anybody up here because they know they're going to have to fight us if we're still here. Because by that time, everybody will know what these people have done. And they've got to get rid of every one of us above ground as soon as possible. So.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Rand, because so many people, when you bring this information up, especially any type of preparations, which is just really common sense. Even people in the Depression knew that you needed to have a food supply of some sort and a water supply, basic staples, and maybe a way to protect yourselves. Today, that's looked down upon as being a type of schizophrenia or paranoia, when in fact it's just common sense. So knowing that people feel that way, we were talking earlier about what you could say that would enable people to really understand this petrodollar thing. How would it affect their bank account if they were these elitists? Could you kind of explain like what it would be like to put them in say Pelosi's position, where she has this funny money in her account, she's got to do anything she can to sustain it, to keep it viable. What would that be like to just one of our regular checking accounts? How would they rate our checking account? How would our checking account be affected by this same situation that Pelosi's looking at?
Well, at least initially, we're all in the same boat, okay? It would change very, very quickly in this respect. When their bank accounts collapse, they're no longer in power. They're gone, okay? And all we're really looking for is a medium of exchange of goods and services. That's all we need. That's all we're looking for. If you are a farmer and you need some dental work and you take a cow to pay off your dental bill, your dentist is going to just look at you and laugh. So we have this medium of exchange to streamline everything, okay? Now, the nice thing about it is, as long as we have faith and confidence in it, regardless of whether it's the US dollar or a new dollar, which has actually been prepared, if we have confidence and we can immediately use it, we will just shift gears and use that, and there'll be no problem. As I see it now, when the petrodollar collapses, the US dollar collapses, all this money, which most of it's just computer entries. I mean, if you got $1 million in the bank account and it's all in $100 bills, you're talking about 160 pounds. Well, you're not going to carry that much currency around with you. Now, these people got literally tens of millions at the very least, if not billions, some of them. They're not going to carry it around. It's computer entries. You can wipe out a computer entry in a heartbeat. Just push the wrong button, it's gone. So when they're gone, their money's gone. They've been exposed. They lost their power base. They can't buy off mercenaries anymore, which are, corrupt law enforcement, corrupt military types. Their history, they're gone. So as long as we have our infrastructure that remains intact, all we need is a medium of exchange of goods and services. It's actually available and out there right now. Now, all that money that in offshore accounts, all that money we owe in China, all that money we owe the Saudis is going to be gone. We can't, there's no reason for us to honor that fraudulent currency, because if we honor it, we don't have enough wealth, either in property and land or gold or precious metals or blood, to pay it off. So we filed bankruptcy on the rest of the world. We're sorry. We'll cancel it out. We will be a good neighbor from now on. We will combine our forces. We will build a new world economy that will take care of everybody.
And Brandon, I wanted to ask you, just like lawyers, lawyers use a special vocabulary to keep the layman unfamiliar with what they are really saying. For instance, the word person that most of us would think means an individual means something quite different to a lawyer and to the court when they use the word person. What is it in the banking industry, in the financial industry, for instance, when Bernanke said that one of the things we need to do is liquidate our debt? A lot of people don't understand what that means. What are some of these terms like that one that really keep us in the dark about what they're doing?
Well, let me correct you real quick. It wasn't Bernanke that said that. That was actually Ron Paul, which is a good thing to do, is liquidate debt. And it also means is let the banks fail. Okay, let them go bankrupt. Now, getting back to what your original question there was, is if everything was put in layman's terms where the average person could understand it, you would see it's just all sleight of hand. They got to keep you in the dark so you don't know what you're talking about, or you don't know what they are talking about. It's like Roy just said, liquidating debt. Well, you know, if somebody, you understand the word bankrupt or bankruptcy, but you don't understand well, forgive me, but maybe I'm being presumptuous here, but the average person does not understand the term liquidating debt. And they do this just to keep you in the dark. This is very interesting. This was in mainstream news not too long ago and is immediately taken off. But the UK, in the UK, the Rothschilds decided to play this game also. And they got caught. They went and took, I don't know how many bars of tungsten, and they coated it in gold, and they tried to pass it off as pure gold. What, 99.9%? Well, they got caught, and they do not have a collateralized account. So this, and I mean, why would they do that? Well, obviously they see the writing on the wall that they better get in the game and be able to compete with this, or they're done, they're gone. And there's a whole lot of other things that were taking place at that time. I was talking about squirreling away money by these corrupt politicians that we have. But you had Bernanke, Greenspan, and I think it was Larry Summers and Obama try to send $10 trillion to the UK in a special account for themselves. And they got caught by Lord so-and-so, and there was an investigation into it. And what the offshoot of that whole investigation was simply this. They tried to lay claim to a collateralized account in Indonesia. And I remember earlier I was telling you there were some issues there with that account. Well, when they actually contacted the powers that be in Indonesia, the executor of that account, and I believe his name is Kelly, just off the top of my head, an R to him, and I don't remember the other name. They said, no. The Federal Reserve has nothing to do with this account. So these are the types of things that they're trying to do. They're scrambling all over the place because they see that their power base is disappearing very, very quickly. And I don't know if I answered your question completely, but getting back to the terminology, the verbiage of what they use. People, your intelligence is being insulted right in your face. They are stealing from your back pocket every single day. And they use this terminology or verbiage, and they actually manufacture and make up words as they go. But they use a verbiage and terminology that is very hard for you to understand. And this is how they get away with it. Again, they are insulting you to your face on a daily basis.
With the help of the government.
With the help of the government. They can't do it without the government. And when you look at your elected officials and you wonder why, as soon as they're elected to office and they get in there, they do a 180. It's because they've been bought off. And this is an interesting point that Roy and I were talking about the other day. I've listened to some individuals and some professors and how they compromise these people. And it all starts off initially, I got this little fly, Obama's fly. Remember when this fly was bugging him, he sent him my way. It's very interesting. I listened to a gentleman on the internet not too long ago, and he talks about overpopulation. Well, this particular professor has been known to go to the Bohemian Club. He's known to gone to the Council of Foreign Relations, and speak to members of the CFR, which is just a shadow government. There's nothing constitutional about it, and they make decisions for your life every single day. Well, when we have these freshman politicians that we just are so confident, so sure they're going to go down there and they're going to represent our interest, the first thing they do is they get them in there and they explain to them 7% growth in the economy. And I'm not going to argue with their findings. These things, this is true. But if you have a viable economy and you have 7% growth yearly, and like 20 years down the road you got total overpopulation, that is something that needs to be addressed, and it can be addressed. So they're like, okay, as soon as they get in there, they hit them with this, which basically neuters them, and saying, okay, they think they got the moral high ground, saying we're putting you in a position to save the world, okay, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions here. And then while they're thinking about that, then they get invited down to the Bohemian Club, and if these people have any vices at all, or if they don't have a really moral strong background, when they get out of the Bohemian Club, they're just mush. They compromise them with sex and drugs and every illicit sex that you could possibly imagine, and then also with murder, the human sacrifice, what do they call it, the sacrifice of care,
cremation of care,
which Alex Jones blew the lid right off of that. And it's really common knowledge not in the mainstream news, of course, but this type of thing here. And so by the time they get out of that, they're just putty in their hands. They've been totally compromised. And then on top of it, they're threatened eventually, hey, if you don't do our bidding, you're not going to be around much longer. I mean, for heaven's sakes, just watch the news. We got people that are standing up to these people all the time, and they're just disappearing. Every time you have a colonel or a general that he gets, like Lieutenant Colonel Roy Potter here, they're constantly threatening them, threatening their life, and trying to find out where they are. And if they do, they're gone. A perfect example is your Navy SEALs. Come on. Okay, they're virtually all dead. The ones that supposedly killed Obama, and a few months later
Osama,
they're all dead. Oh, Osama, well, hey, Osama bin Laden, and they're all dead, and you can't get any information. The families are trying to get information, and little by little it comes out. And now if you're following alternative news media, it's so obvious they murdered him. They had to get rid of him because he was going to be exposed. The same thing with Benghazi, and this list goes on and on and on and on. And if you get in their way, they are going to kill you. And you look at Lieutenant Colonel Roy Potter here, and he's stuck his neck out, and he's done that, and he's been very, very consistent with this also. This is not for the faint of heart. Only people that are going to stand up to these are patriots. If you love your country, if you love your family, stand up. It's time to be counted. Either that or you're going to lose everything.
What should the military and the police do?
They should immediately declare Obama as not a commander-in-chief. Immediately. And tell him, go arrest him. Put him in jail like a common criminal and a common thief he is. I got more respect for a crack whore than Obama. Obama is, I can't even.
Is he any better than Bush or any worse than Bush?
He's just more of Bush. That's all he is. They're two peas in the same pot.
It's a false paradigm, isn't it?
Yeah, they're the
left-right
same.
paradigm's false.
They're two heads of the same snake. Bush, did you hear that? You are a snake. You killed over 3,000 of your fellow countrymen. You are part and parcel. You and Dick Cheney.
You're talking about 9/11, right?
9/11. You are part and parcel of Dick Cheney and Rumsfeld. You need to be brought to trial. You've already been found guilty in the world courts. You need to be prosecuted in this country right now and face an execution squad. And really, that's all I've got to say. I want to thank my friend Roy here, giving me the opportunity to express myself. And come on, people, let's take America back. Yeah, the America that I grew up with. God bless you.
just want to take a second to thank Brand for doing that. He has a lot of knowledge, and I just wanted him to share it with you all. So as you can see, even though I'm not doing regular updates on YouTube anymore because I've had to move off on to some other things, I do want to do an occasional update so that I'm still kicking and still interested and concerned about what's happening in the world. So you all have a good day. Thanks.